Vinyl community, are you ready for power trios? That's our topic today, power trios.
Groups of 3 people that make it sound like there's 15 people on stage.
Indeed.
And if you look into it, there's a whole bunch of them. First off, we want you guys to subscribe. Check out all the stuff in the bio. We want you to go to our Fourth Wall page, check all that stuff out, do all the things. Now, power trios.
Yes.
Or just trios.
Yeah, they're power trios sounds better.
Yeah. I mean, you forget that the base of rock and roll, or pop music for that matter, is drums, bass, guitar, vocals.
Yeah.
And then you sprinkle other things, keyboards and horns and stuff into it. But when 3 dudes can get on stage and make these sounds and captivate you like they can, it's a pretty special thing.
Yes.
And I didn't realize, I have a lot of music from power trios, but there are also some trios that I'm missing music from that I, for some reason, thought I had. What's up with that?
Well, it always happens. And what happens with me, I mix up what I have on CD and what I have on vinyl.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, crap.
Because we're like multi-generational music fans.
Yeah.
Who, like, I started with 45s and records and went to 8 tracks and cassettes and CDs and now back to records. It can be a little confusing.
Yeah.
I used to pride myself on the fact that I've never like bought something twice or lost anything. But I think if you've listened to the show over the last couple years, I'm missing a few things, and I have a couple records. Like I bought X Los Angeles 2 times.
Oh.
Like within like a month and a half, like because Amazon had a special pressing of it that was like a black and white swirl, and it was like $13, and I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
So I buy it. And then like a month and a half later, I'm like working or something, and that comes across my vinyl deals thing. And all of a sudden I order it, and then I've got 2 of them. So you have it, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I figured. But I don't know, man. It's easy to lose track of your collection when you get as many records as we have.
Yeah. And I have no idea how many I have.
I don't either. But I'm going to have to find out soon, because we're dealing with a new financial advisor, and because of an insurance, having to audit insurance, they want me to go through and like value my collection. So if anybody out there wants to put all my shit in Discogs, I'll pay you. So power trios. So we got a little off track. I had so many in my head, but I brought different ones. I like to talk about different stuff. We always try to talk about different stuff, and I think that there's a nice cross-section of groups today. So.
Yeah, so this is we're not saying these are our 5 best power trios. They're the 5 trios we want to talk about.
Yeah, so what's your first one?
Ooh, we're going to hop right in.
We're going to hop in. We aren't messing around today.
Well,
these fine people are very busy. They got so many things to do.
Let's talk about Cream.
I like it.
Cream. And, of course, we know Cream from Ginger Baker, Jack Bruce, and, of course, Eric Clapton.
Yeah.
But they weren't around that long.
What was it? It was 66 to 69, right?
Yeah, they formed in 66 in London, of course.
Yeah.
And kind of a power group.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Because, 2 of the dudes sang. Jack and Eric both sang.
Yeah.
Obviously, Eric on guitar, Jack Bruce on bass. The fireball known as Ginger Baker on drums. I think from the very little that I know about them, it was kind of a tumultuous.
Yeah, they were at each other's throats
constantly
from the get-go.
Yeah, yeah. So you put all those ingredients together, it's going to get explosive.
Yeah,
pretty quickly. But in that 3 years, right? Was it 66 to 69?
Yeah.
In that 3 years, they released 4 albums, which again we talk about it all the time. It was the norm for bands to maybe release an album, every 8 months to a year. Things are a little different nowadays, but in that time, "Sunshine of Your Love" is like a standard song that people associate with that era, you know.
And I mean, the amazing thing about Cream, you think, oh, Eric Clapton, because he's, he became a solo artist really in the 70s and had a brilliant career. But Jack Bruce was the primary songwriter, although Clapton contributed, but Bruce was the primary songwriter.
Yeah. And then, Clapton was very close with George Harrison. There was kind of a partnership there. Badge was a co-write with George Harrison. It was a crazy time. And the other crazy thing about Clapton is he was part of so many groups. Yardbirds, Derek and the Dominoes. There was another one. Delaney and Bonnie.
Yeah.
And
he really spent the better part of the 60s in bands.
Right. Just kind of a journeyman, jumping from one band to another, and managed to manage a heroin addiction and come out of it.
Good job, Eric.
Yeah, good job. It's just like I've said many times before, we live in a time when you can see these people. Well, not Cream anymore, but they did their last album was called Goodbye.
Yeah.
And
they're like, this is it.
Yeah, and they did a final show, but then I think like 15 or so years ago they did another final show. I think at somewhere in London, and I think they recorded it. So bands like that are probably not meant to stand the test of time.
Yeah.
I think Jack Bruce has passed away. I know Ginger has passed away. So Eric's the only one left of the group.
Yeah. That's
accurate. And
Did you guys turn the record around yet?
Nope. Wheels of Fire by Cream. I have no Cream whatsoever.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I should probably do something about that. And this is a gatefold, so watch out, Jacob. Here comes the trippy inner gatefold. Oh, I didn't realize this was on RSO Records.
Oh, yeah.
Huh.
And this is a repop, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. Not an original.
No.
That's a cool. I mean, because they existed in that like Summer of Love.
Yeah.
Psychedelic era, but I wouldn't like say that they're a psychedelic band.
No.
So just an interesting juxtaposition.
But they were definitely a jam band that would, they could turn a 5-minute song into a 30-minute song.
And that's not for everybody.
No.
But it was that era.
It was that time. Yeah.
Another one that I really love. And I feel like it's not a trio, but Allman Brothers, also kind of a jam band. And I feel like they're an underappreciated band as well. That's a good one. Is this the only of theirs that you have, or do you have?
Yeah, I will probably pick up Disraeli Gears.
Yeah.
Just, I don't know that I need Goodbye and some of the other stuff, but those two.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I may just get all 4 or 5 or whatever the hell it is. Just, I kind of, even if I'm not that passionate, I enjoy being a completist. That's a good one to start with.
You're up. What?
I'm gonna. You know what? The next one I'm gonna talk about is a trio.
Imagine that.
This, I know I've talked about it before. I think it's good. Them Crooked Vultures, and I bought this because when it came out, I immediately got it. This was released in 2009. And this is a super group between Josh Homme of Queens of the Stone Age, Dave Grohl on drums, and none other than rock and roll royalty, John Paul Jones from Led Zeppelin. And when I first heard that these guys were getting together, I'm like, that's interesting. Because, Queens of the Stone Age is a very what's the word I'm looking for?
They're a desert stoner band.
Desert stoner band for sure, which is it's not going to appeal to everybody. It's got a certain sound,
Yeah.
a certain vibe to it.
Oh yeah.
Like Queen's Songs for the Deaf is a masterpiece.
I love that album.
It's a great record, not for everybody, but the combination of these three guys, and when you say power trio, there is power
yeah.
behind these dudes. You've got the guy that played bass for Led Zeppelin. You've got the guy that played drums for Nirvana and Josh Homme. It's fantastic, and the whole album is great. It's not on the same like frequency as Queens of the Stone Age. It's kind of similar, but they are their own thing. They have their own sound. So this was recorded in February of 2009. Performed a show in Chicago at the end of 2009, and played later that year in Europe. So they aren't just like a band on record. They actually have played shows. I'd love to see them get back together. I've heard rumblings that they were going to get back together, but I don't
Yeah,
know.
because all those guys like to do different things.
Oh yeah, involved in a lot of different stuff. Got the British phone booth there. If you will help me, I'll open this
It's
up.
a beautiful gatefold.
And so you got a Vulture there. It's just it's kind of avant-garde, but very, very cool. And I mean, every time I listen to it, it really makes me happy.
And you don't see this in the wild hardly ever.
No.
Because this thing's jumped up in value, hasn't it?
A lot. I don't even know what it's worth, but as soon as I saw it available for a decent price, and I was lucky enough to have the funds to get it, I snapped it up, and now I guess it's really hard to come by.
Yeah.
And people are screaming about another pressing of it. But yeah, I'm super pumped to have this because it's one of those that I first got on CD, and I'm like, oh, on vinyl, let's do it. And as soon as I could, I got it. And that's I mean, we say it all the time. It sounds kind of like a mantra, but you're always going to regret not buying the record more.
You're never going to regret buying. Like,
No.
I paid too much. No.
Well, we all pay too much.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, we are in the golden age of paying too much for vinyl. But, when you see something, it's kind of like shopping at certain places. Like if you go to Sam's Club or Costco or any kind of membership-based place like that, and you see something that you want that isn't a 55-gallon drum of mayonnaise, if you see something you want, you have to get it because it's not going to be there.
Yeah.
And I'm very grateful to have this, and I love the album. It's a different mindset. It scratches an itch that I didn't even know was there. And as soon as you get the opportunity, if you see it for a decent price, get it, or just get it on CD, or just stream it and check it
Yeah.
out.
Just check it out.
Yeah, but it's fantastic. Them Crooked Vultures. What is your next one, Mr. Wheeler?
That is a great one.
Thank
well,
you. I don't know where to put it.
in your box.
Excuse me?
How about the Jam, all mod cons? Well, the Jam, but I brought all mod cons. I think this was one that I got when we first started looking for records, maybe at the
Did you get it? Did you get it
Antique Mall.
Southport?
No, at the
Midland.
Midland.
Yeah, the first honey hole.
Yeah. There were some great, looking back, it's like, damn, we should have bought like $300 worth.
Yeah, I mean, those days, I knew that at that point, that if records are coming back to this point, it's just going to keep going. I had no idea or didn't have a crystal ball to realize that pretty soon we're going to be paying $40 for new records.
Yeah.
But, here we are.
So the Jam, they actually formed in 72, but
They've
they're
been around that long?
well, the early Jam, they were doing a lot of just covers. They were doing like Little Richard and Chuck Berry covers. So they were kind of like a cover bar band
Okay.
because their first release didn't even come out until 77.
Where are they from?
They are from in Woking Surly,
Okay. So England.
England, yeah.
Yeah.
But when Weller listened to the Who, My Generation, he fell in love. He's like, I love this sound, and he got obsessed with mods.
Oh yeah, you got what were the two groups, the mods and what wasn't
I'll have to go back and watch Quadrophenia.
Quadrophenia, it was the mods and the something else.
I don't know what
I
the-
can't remember what the other group
Yeah.
was. But the mods were like dressed like this.
Yeah.
and maybe the preppy
Yeah,
ones. I don't know.
but they're riding scooters
Yeah.
and
Yeah. That's great. I have a few Jam albums and I need to really dig in and listen to them more.
And they weren't around. I mean, you look at those early years, they didn't have any releases from the first 4 years of their
Yeah.
existence, and
Yeah.
it wasn't until the 5th year. And they changed some members, so every member on their vinyl releases was a member of the band.
Okay. I like the back here where you got the bass, the guitar, and the drum, the
Yeah,
snare drum.
that's it. 3 pieces.
Yep. That's all you need, right?
Yeah, but they.
Are they? They aren't still around, right?
No. Weller went off when they broke up in, was it 82? So Weller,
kind of a short life.
yeah, really, I mean, 5 years of albums,
Yeah. Yeah.
because the early years were just, they were really just a bar band. But they had,
I love the graph of who was in the band.
yes.
When. That's so funny to me.
Yeah, they've had a lot of different members.
Yeah.
But 6 albums.
And one of those is live.
And
right?
that's yeah.
I didn't mean to throw a wrench into you. No, I think one of the Jam albums I have is a live.
Oh,
Right.
and that's a great one to
Yeah,
have.
yeah.
Because the version of That's Entertainment. I love that song. It's
Yeah.
probably one of my top 10 favorite songs.
Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. How did you first hear of them? Was it when you were working at the?
No, I heard the Jam in high school. My musical sensei, Steve McMurray, he had
Shout out to Steve.
he had an amazing record collection.
Oh, did he?
And I mean, in high school, to know somebody that has well over 1,000 albums, we'd just go over there and just listen to records. And his taste was all across the board.
Yeah, probably a lot like mine.
Yeah.
You get whiplash going through his record collection. Well, that's awesome. How did he get like so deep into collecting?
It just I think probably his sister was into music.
Mm-hmm.
And so his sister was older, so she'd drag him to shows.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great. The Jam, obviously, just another one of those ones that you will occasionally mention, and I need to listen to. I've actually started listening to some of those bands
Oh, good.
now
good.
that I have streaming available.
And Weller, like Sting from the Police, broke off onto his own solo career.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't like Sting's solo stuff. I don't like Weller's solo stuff
yeah.
because it's kind of soft jazz.
Yeah.
It's just not.
How much of a solo career has he had?
Well, he pivoted into this band called the Style Council, which was soft jazz.
Okay.
And then he's released some solo stuff.
Okay. Cool. Well, that's a good one, man. I know that, like, again, there are those bands in your collection that stand out for one reason or another, and the fact that it's just three dudes is a really cool, like, delineating thing about certain bands. Believe it or not, we're not going to talk about the Police today because I feel like we give the Police a lot of love.
They get a lot of love.
You know, and it's like one of those first trios that you think of when you're thinking of bands with three guys, but that's a good one. Anything else about the Jam?
So the Jam released 18 consecutive top 40 singles in the UK.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. It's crazy how much different the charts are in the UK
Yeah.
compared to the US. That's nutty.
I
That's,
mean,
that's a
because-
heck of a streak.
They were part of that whole, European punk movement.
Yeah.
Although I wouldn't, now you don't really think of the Jam as being punk at all. They're
Right. Just
they're-
kind of like rock.
They're mods.
They're mods. All mod cons. I love it. That's a good one.
The
Well-
Jam
I like Jam
on your toast.
on my toast. My next one.
Toast.
If that's not a band name, it should be. Well, it's this little group from Canada, from Toronto, Ontario, called Rush. And they are literally, like, aside from the Stray Cats, Rush was the first trio that I was like, wow, how cool. How cool is it that three dudes can produce this kind of sound? This is Counterparts. It's their latter era. I think 93 this came out. I've always loved the cover of this with the bolt and the nut and everything.
That is a great cover.
Yeah, in the back.
The simplicity is.
Yeah, yeah. And this is a repop that just came out, I think, late last year. Their later stuff got there was a, I think in 2015 they did their entire catalog in 200 gram vinyl, and I didn't have the money to spend on all that. I regret it now because
Yeah.
those are they're really thick, really good pressings. And then, they made so few of the later era in that 2015 pressing that the value of this was way the heck up. And so the fact that they repopped it, I love. The fact that it's 2 records and it's not a gatefold, I hate. And you know how I feel. Most records should be gatefolds.
Yes.
Just make
everything a gatefold.
Well, make use of-
Cardboard's cheap.
Yeah, make use of that real estate. But aside from that, this has a song called Stick It Out. That was like the first single. It's very heavy. There's a song on here called Nobody's Hero, a song called Cold Fire. But aside from that, we're talking about the fact that they are a power trio. And this unit was together from the band's second album through their last album, Clockwork Angels, which I think came out in 2011. Neil Peart just passed away 3 years ago, so they're no longer. But they were one of the few bands that, aside from changing drummers after the first album, kept the same group of people through their history. And it's just the first band that I think of when I think of three people.
They were one that I thought of, and I'm like, I know Jason will bring Rush.
Yeah. And I also, another great Canadian trio is Triumph. I was going to bring them, but I feel like I give Triumph a lot of love too. So I was trying to, limit the stuff that I've talked about before. But I've got to talk about Rush. They just, what a following, what a statement that their career has been. They finally made it into the Hall of Fame, which to some people doesn't mean anything. But and they've set all kinds of records from Canadian perspective, but they are just one of those bands that made such a huge mark, and it still feels like they're kind of on the outside.
Yeah.
They weren't really in the 80s. They tried to, like everybody, capture that MTV image kind of thing. They just weren't that kind of band.
No.
But they still managed to put out vital music. And and continue to tour and sell out. I probably saw these guys more than anybody, probably 8 or 9 times, I would think, over the
Ooh, that's
years. And it was almost being a drummer and being in marching band and playing drums. I mean, it was almost like I had to be a Rush fan. But the further I got into their music, the more I loved them, and I do. I think that they're one of the best, and I just love this album cover. I always have. It looks so cool, and their art was always done by Hugh Syme, who's done album artwork for you name the band.
yeah.
It's just when you go to their shows, it's not just the music, it's the visuals, it's the how great each of them are at playing their
It's a
instrument.
complete experience.
Yeah, I mean, it is such. I think that's the thing that really gets you, or would have gotten you if you'd gone to see them. It's just, you're just in awe of the whole package because they did the whole thing. The visuals, they had video stuff created for each song. Really, one of the first bands that I knew that did that. Now I know Pink Floyd did too.
Yeah.
Early on, but I never saw Pink Floyd. But just a feast for the eyes and ears and the brain. And if you get any chance to go out there and check out like live performances from Rush, give them a look because it's definitely worth
It's
the time.
worth it.
I know you're not a huge fan, but you can at least respect
Yeah.
the effort and the things that they put into it. So
And I do have some Rush.
yeah, I mean, there's some that you have to. I mean,
Yeah.
like Moving Pictures,
Yeah.
Tom Sawyer.
Yeah.
There are definitely songs that they're known for, but and they have hits, big air quotes. But once you dig a little deeper, maybe not into the album cuts, but past those things that you hear all the time, Limelight, Tom Sawyer. There's so much good stuff.
Yeah, my favorite Rush is Permanent Waves.
Oh, it's great. It's
And
great.
a lot of that goes back to a buddy in high school would bring that cassette and want to listen to it nonstop.
And you're like, okay,
Yeah.
okay, I'm game. But that's also the way when you're in those teen years. That's the way that you develop your taste for music. It's you're getting getting input from this friend and that friend, and you're like, my sister was older, so I had that, and I had an older cousin who was very influential on my musical taste, and then friends in band. And it all started with all the stuff that my parents listened to. I mean, they allowed me to listen to everything they had. They didn't, and I scratched the hell out of my mom's Beatles records, Mr. Russell. Ding, ding, ding. It's been a while.
It has been a while.
It's been a couple
He'll
episodes.
appreciate it.
I know. And I can't thank my parents enough for that, because I think my parents and my uncle Dwayne are the reason. And really, my whole family always listened to a lot of music, and that's the reason that I'm so passionate about it today. I guess it's probably their fault that that I have the sickness so bad. But Rush is probably a top 5 band for me out of everything.
And they would for sure be a top 5 trio.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, man. Rush,
Nice.
Counterparts. Give it a look, a listen.
Now we're going to dip into
Dip.
the
Sorry.
1980s and the Minutemen. And
These guys are just, they are like one of those bands that nobody knows about, but everybody knows about.
they're very influential.
Yeah. It's crazy.
And I've never heard anything like the Minutemen because it's a combination of funk, jazz,
Ska.
punk. It's just everything.
Yeah.
And there's weird breaks. Like they'll have, there's jamming along and then all of a sudden nothing. And then they'll pick back up.
Yeah, the breaks, the
Yeah.
silence
Yeah.
is almost louder than the music. That's crazy.
They formed in 1980 in San Pedro, California.
Okay.
and they weren't around that long because one of the members died in a tragic car wreck,
Yep.
and it just when D. Boone was killed in a van accident,
Mhm.
it just led to a lot of depression for the band.
Yeah.
And they
I
just,
mean, you think about it, you lose any member of a band. That's huge.
Yeah.
But if you're starting with 3 people, that's even bigger. I mean, it's,
yeah,
Sublime had the same thing, right? When they
right.
blew up, their singer and guitarist died. Now his son is actually playing with them. But it's very similar. When you lose 33% of your band, that's a huge thing. That's a huge hole to fill.
Yeah, they only had, as the Minutemen, they only had 4 albums.
Mm-hmm.
And this was actually their 3rd album.
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay. And it's the one that everybody points to.
Yeah,
right?
this is the one that everybody points to.
I don't think I have this.
And you can tell from the ring wear, I've had it for a long time.
Is this an original?
It's
I'm gonna turn it around because
Darn-
you got the other 2 guys. on
darn
the back
near an
cover.
original.
Yeah, that's cool. Let's open the gatefold and show it to folks. You got it?
Yep.
Okay. I love it. There's like behind the scenes candid photos and artwork. Was the artwork done?
Raymond Pettibone,
Raymond Pettibone. Okay.
who did a bunch of stuff for SST.
Oh, okay.
He did a bunch of stuff, I think, for Black Flag also.
Okay. It's funny how those underground bands had those underground artists that they associated with.
Well, and at the time in the early 80s and late 70s, a lot of zines were taking off, and those guys, to talk about music scenes, that was the only way you knew. There was no internet.
Yep.
And
It's magazines. They were like underground magazines that were put out by
just random people.
random people or groups regionally released or locally released and then just kind of passed around.
Yeah, and they became really the people who did the zines became as much a part of the scene as anybody, because that's the way anybody would learn about what's going on, what concerts, who's in what band.
Can you imagine now where you literally don't even have to leave your bedroom? You can get on the internet and if you have the drive and a little bit of knowledge, I mean, the effort that it used to take to pass recordings around, people would make tapes of all these records and just pass them around because they heard about them through these magazines. And that really speaks to how much the bands and the music meant to the folks that were responsible for perpetuating their existence, really.
Yeah, it was a different time.
Yeah.
There's no other way to say it.
I remember, not to the same degree because I was a few years behind you, but like Metal Edge was a big magazine for me when I was a kid, and it was basically, just feature stories about the '80s hard rock bands, and there was an editorial section, there was a section where you could write in snail mail to the editor. And then there was also an upcoming releases section of it. And I lived and died by that. Like, that magazine was probably written and printed 2 months before it actually came out. So at the time, they didn't have instantaneous information about when this is coming out or when this is coming out. And I was there. I mean, by those dates, I would go to the music store on the date.
Because you had to know what was coming out. And when. And that was the only way to find out.
Yeah, and now we're just spoiled by these...
We're spoiled, rotten children.
By these riches of information and instantaneous gratification. It's really... It's been a trip to, like, grow up, not just in those different eras, but to grow up listening to records, 8 tracks, cassettes, vinyl, CDs, streaming, and then it's just kind of a mind warp.
It really is. They, trying to figure out who they sound like. Not well. I mean, think of their influences: Wire, Gang of Four, the pop group, Pere Ube, Richard Hell, and the Voidoids. But they were also fans. This is where the weirdness gets in. Captain Beefheart.
Well, that is very weird. I mean, if you haven't listened to Beefheart, he's just basically playing blues music and breaking it down and playing it in a very, very different way. Beefheart is one of those guys that people either love or hate, even more to more of a degree than Zappa, But yeah, who do they sound like? If you had to say these guys sound like somebody that our listeners and viewers would know, or is it just themselves? Because it's a strange combination of music that just kind of throws you off balance. Yeah.
And I mean, a lot of the songs are really political, really a lot of social commentary.
Which is, a lot of that music was looked at by, in the punk scene and the early days of punk and how that developed.
It was very political.
It was very political, but it scared people too.
Yeah.
Because, parents didn't understand it. Most people that listened to it didn't understand it, didn't understand there were messages in it. They just liked the energy of it.
Yeah.
And looking back on it now, when you talk about bands like this, the whole gamut of this era of music was fueled by what was going on socially, and these bands were easy to cast off. Oh, the 2.5-minute songs or whatever. They were making a statement. It wasn't just the music, it was the message they were trying to get across.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of the punk bands, the Vietnam War had a big influence. You hear a lot of lyrics about Vietnam because when these guys came up, the Vietnam War had just ended.
And they were very affected by it.
They had family members, friends. They knew people who had been to Vietnam or even died in Vietnam.
Yeah. It's just, I think it's really easy to overlook groups like this and cast them aside. But they are absolutely deserving of your attention and your research and your listening. Because listen to how many people are talking about the Minutemen. How many very famous pop and rock folks that are still around today are talking about bands like this. That's not an accident.
Yeah, it's not an accident at all. Yeah. But it's hard. People can list them as an influence, but again, nobody sounds like them. Yeah. I've never heard anything remotely close to.
They're on the list. I definitely need to dig into them. The Minutemen.
The Minutemen, double nickels on the dime.
All right.
I love the title, too.
I do, too. Talk about a band that nobody sounds like. How about the Jimi Hendrix Experience? Kind of the original power trio.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you had Jimmy doing what he was doing on guitar and singing, right? And they're widely regarded as one of the greatest and most influential bands out there. Jimmy's widely regarded as one of the most influential guitarists of all time. But the thing about Jimi Hendrix Experience is not just that the music was something that no one had heard before. The big thing that I think gets looked over is that he was a black man leading a band with two white dudes at a time that
didn't happen.
It didn't happen in that era. And the fact that we're still talking about him today, and he died so young too. He died in 1970.
Yeah.
So his career was cut way short.
Oh, yeah.
And he kind of gets chalked up in the 27 Club and associated with the drugs and all of the bad stuff. And I don't think enough focus is put on the good stuff, the great things that he did. And there's a new documentary out about Electric Ladyland Studios, which he built in New York City to be able to record. And I haven't watched it yet, but I've just heard it's awesome, because I guess it was a former nightclub that they converted into the studio. And if you look in your liner notes, from the late 60s on, there are a lot of great albums and great bands that have recorded in that studio. Obviously, Jimmy is the dude. You also had drummer Mitch Mitchell and bassist Noel Redding. They, no matter how you feel about the music, whether you like it or not, again, kind of like the Minutemen, there is no band that sounds like this.
No.
No, I mean, there are guitarists who have emulated Jimmy. There are bands who have kind of used them as a building block, as a power trio, and tried to do the same thing. But, it's not just his guitar playing. His voice is so distinctive, and that's what sets it off. Like, that's the combination of those things, and the fact that they're just a trio is really what makes it so special. And here they are on the back. I love the back of this, the photo of them, backlit,
Everybody's got some sort of fro working.
Yeah, everybody's got the fro working. But, these new pressings, the Hendrix Family Trust has, almost every record store day, they're going to put something out, a live show. I think that his show in Maui was just released, a couple years ago. And I think there's a documentary about that too. It's really amazing that there's so many great recordings of these bands at that time.
Yeah, because it's weird. A lot of the 80s live shows for at least underground bands, are not the greatest sound quality, which is not surprising.
Yeah.
But the fact that, way back then, they had great recordings.
Yeah. And I think I know I've talked about it a lot. The Experience Hendrix tour, I just saw again this last time that they came to town. And it's basically put on by the family and Eddie Kramer. And I can't remember, Eddie Kramer was his producer that helped build Electric Ladyland. But there's another guy that helps the family. But that show is all kinds of current musicians and stars that are getting together, touring together, and performing Hendrix's music to kind of keep it alive and introduce it to anybody that maybe hasn't experienced it yet. But if you get a chance, check out those Experience Hendrix shows, because it is so cool, and it's done for all the right reasons, and you just can't. If you think about how big Jimmy is now, imagine how big he'd be if he was around for more than 4 or 5 years. Just an amazing musician, so far ahead of his time that you can't even put a number on it. And all of these new pressings of these records, I've probably had this one for 8 or 9 years, but they sound as good as they ever have, and it's just, again, like a time machine, man. Takes you right back. It really
is.
Jimi Hendrix Experience.
That's a good one.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that.
Well, we're going to stick in the 80s with a little band from Minneapolis, Husker Du, Zen Arcade.
Another band that
is
is so popular, yet so few people really know about them.
Yeah, they
kind of an anomaly.
Really, they are, without a doubt. They formed in St. Paul in '79, and the 3 members that were part of the band from the get-go until the end, Bob Mould, who is still out touring and doing shows, Greg Norton, and Grant Hart. and they first, when they first started, they gained notoriety as a hardcore punk band. And then they kind of, like their first, I think their first release, Everything Falls Apart, is very punky. But by the time this came out, it was a whole different band.
And that,
Or a whole different sound, I guess.
that happens. I mean, bands evolve and people either come along for the ride or don't, right?
Yeah.
But Husker Du is just almost a mythic Minneapolis band. There's so many great bands from that.
Yeah, and
area.
here's the back.
I love the muted colors on it. This is obviously late 70s,
Yeah.
80s era artwork, but it's very cool.
And it, of course, is on SST.
Yeah, which was a trusted label for young
It was a
John
very
Wheeler.
trusted label.
Yeah,
Which it's weird to think, hey, they're from Minneapolis, but they're on SST.
yeah, because
They weren't on Twin Tone,
Yeah, where's SST from?
California.
California. Yeah.
And I think it was, because SST, I think Greg Ginn is from Black Flag is a big part of SST.
What's the? Let's open this up too. We're just getting into these gatefolds. Oh, you got lyrics and cool stuff.
So you can sing along with every song.
Yeah, I love it. It's great. No, Husker and how? I can't remember how many albums they. Bob Mould is still out there.
Yeah, he was just recently in Indianapolis.
Yeah, but I can't remember how many albums they had. Not
7.
7? Okay.
Yeah.
And are all 3 of them still alive?
No.
No.
I think Grant Hart has passed away.
Okay. See, and that's another thing too. These bands did their thing because they loved it, kind of became mythic. And, so many other Minneapolis bands got that national attention and just rose to fame. And these guys kind of didn't,
No.
And it's just so wild how that happens for certain bands and how it doesn't for others.
This is where they really became the Husker Du that everybody knows.
Yeah.
And they would later leave SST for I think Warner maybe. I don't know exactly who, but because they were having trouble with distribution because SST was a smaller label and
in California, so getting it across the country and to all the places.
Yeah, and they weren't getting the distribution they wanted, and they thought they could be bigger. And
You think about the work that record labels had to do in the 60s, 70s, 50s, since the beginning of rock and pop, how much work it was at one time, and probably still is, even with all the instantaneous communication and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
How hard it is to make those contacts and to just get that ball rolling and keep it rolling. And in that case, there are going to be bands who absolutely deserve to be known and to have that widespread fame that just aren't going to catch on.
yeah, and these were really the guys that proved to me 3 people can make a lot of sound.
Yeah.
Because when I've seen them live a couple of times in small clubs, and I know one, I think I saw him at the Patio. It was so loud. It's a tiny room.
Yeah.
And it was so loud.
Yeah.
That's one when you're leaving the show. I could have used earplugs.
I always wear ear protection anymore. Sometimes I'll forget it, but playing drums most of my life and being around bands and loud shows, my hearing is absolutely shot. But yeah, that's a visceral thing. When it doesn't matter how many people are on stage making the noise, but when it's 3 people
And they had a lot of fuzz guitars,
Yeah.
so there's always there's always sound going.
Noise, and yeah, it's an experience for sure. I've never seen them, obviously, but it is definitely an experience.
Hart died of cancer
Oh, okay.
at 56 in 2017.
Okay.
So
No more do.
no more do.
It's a bummer.
Yeah, it sucks.
It's pretty crazy. Obviously, a lot of bands have lost a lot of members over
Yeah.
the years,
Yeah.
you know, and people like Hendrix or, you know, people die early. But then you look at the other side of that, how many people are still around? How many bands are still all alive and either not touring or not doing that band anymore? There's a whole gamut there.
There really is.
But it is a shame, you know, when somebody that's such a linchpin of a group is no longer around anymore, because it kind of takes that opportunity away from the rest of the folks in the band.
Indeed, it does. That's
All right.
Husker Du.
Husker Du, go listen to them. They get loud. Well, these guys,
Bee
this
Gees.
this is the Bee Gees, and they, believe it or not, they started in 1958 as young kids, brothers Barry, Robin, and Morris Gibb. They were especially successful in pop music in the late 60s and early 70s, and later prominent performers in the disco music era in the mid to late 70s. So they kind of had a few different waves of popularity, and then what everybody remembers them for is the disco era, the Saturday Night Fever and stuff. This is Spirits Having Flown. And this is a gatefold? It sure is. Look at this.
Yes.
Look, it's a single album, but it's a gatefold, and I love
You get to
that.
see
And then
the
you've got
Gibbs.
like this angelic picture of the three of them here. But man, I've seen the Bee Gees live once, and it was when I moved to Florida for my first year of school. It was Hurricane Andrew had just hit, and Gloria Estefan and a bunch of artists from South Florida put on the Hurricane Relief Concert, and it was at Joe Robbie Stadium. So the Bee Gees lived in Miami. So Gloria Estefan, the Bee Gees, Jimmy Buffett, Weird Al Yankovic. I mean, the list, John Cicada, the list of artists that performed at this thing was just outrageous. But when the Bee Gees came on, the place
Erupted.
came down, man. This was 1992, I think. I mean, I had never seen anything like it. I mean, I knew the Bee Gees for what they were from Saturday Night Fever, Grease, but they just rocked the place. And I am so grateful to have been able to see them. Anyway, this is Spirits Having Flown, and I'm going to pick this up, Jacob, because this has, well, why? You know, it's a gatefold, but it doesn't have the damn song names. Nothing in here has the song titles on it. Okay. Anyway, the Bee Gees, I just don't think you can talk about popular trios without talking about these guys, you know? And technically, you know, Morris played bass, Barry played guitar and sang, and Robin sang backing. Now that's not staying closed. I think I shoved it in too far. But yeah, I don't think you can talk about like pop trios without mentioning these guys.
Oh yeah, they're on. They have to be there.
Because, you know, they were more like children when they started.
Yeah, because
know.
they started in 58.
58. So they're, you know, kind of doing, like variety shows, performing
Yeah.
in there, singing in harmony. And just the path that their career has taken is pretty incredible. You know, being Australian and being from Great Britain and then coming to the U.S. and just exploding. It's pretty amazing. I've just always loved them. I mean, they're easy. They're also easy targets for people.
Yeah.
You know, with the backlash from disco. That's what they're known for, but they did so much before that, you know?
Yeah.
And
They were just a harmonizing trio.
yeah. And since the fucking album doesn't have the song titles on it, I'm looking it up because Tragedy is on this one. Love You Inside Out, Spirits Having Flown, Too Much Heaven. This came out in that disco era. This came out in 1979. So after that Saturday Night Fever like explosion.
Yeah.
But the singles from this were Too Much Heaven, Tragedy, Love You Inside Out, and Spirits Having Flown. And this is just them at the peak of their popularity. Did we open the gatefold and look at it?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's the angelic looking portrait of the three of them. It's they maybe they're not a power trio, but they are a trio with a lot of power.
Yes.
And sold millions and millions and millions of records, and are kind of punchlines for people still to this day. But go back and listen to their full catalog. It's pretty impressive. Barry Gibb has written hit songs for so many people. They're just kind of one of those bands, the opposite of like Minutemen, kind of one of those bands that you hear about a lot, but maybe people don't appreciate to the degree that they should.
I think that's a good way to put it.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you, John.
Nice.
I appreciate it. What's your last one? It's a special one.
It's a special one. It's a special one to me. The Violent Femmes.
I'm going to straighten that up.
This was their first release in '83, and I remember when this came out. I went to the record store. I think I don't know how I found out about them.
Was it maybe it was playing in the record store?
No, because I went there specifically to buy this album.
That's wild. Maybe it was one of the magazines.
It could have been it could have been like Trouser Press.
Yeah.
And they talked about, hey, there's this band coming out, the Violent Femmes, and it's funny. They're described as an American folk punk band.
American folk punk.
From
I like it.
From Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
See, I had I thought that they were from Europe. I had no idea that they were from the U.S.
And I've seen these guys too, and they're just put on a great show. This is not a loud show because bass is almost a lead in some of the songs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's very bass and drum heavy.
Yeah, and very rhythmic, like
very
bass
rhythmic.
playing.
Yeah.
Almost. Well, I'm not going to mention the band because it's the last one I'm going to talk about. But
it's very much like a Joy Division or New Order.
yes, yeah, for sure. Each of the instruments in a band like this can become like the lead instrument.
Yeah.
Just because of the way that the music sounds. And that's special to be able to, I mean, these guys are another band that everybody knows, but they may not know that they know them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's to accomplish that, to be that recognizable at the same time that you're so anonymous. That's crazy.
Yeah, they were one of those 80s bands that the songs really took off.
Yeah.
I mean, they grabbed the attention, and I think some of them even got some limited airplay.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, they were on MTV.
Well, I mean, they were on MTV, but I remember, when I was first turning 21, which would have been the mid-90s, any club that I went to, to go out drinking and dancing and all the stuff, Blister in the Sun was a staple constantly. You would hear it, the entire club or, venue would just go nuts.
Sing along.
They'd sing along. And again, a lot of those people may not have been able to tell you who the hell the artist was.
Yeah.
But they knew the lyrics because it's almost like they were passed along in like an underground kind of way to DJs and people that played that music at those places. I mean, they are fantastic. I've heard from so many people how great their shows are.
They're really fun shows.
Yeah, and I need to actually, because they still tour.
Yeah, they their classic years from 81 to 83, and then 84 to 92, they had a split, and then they kind of got back together.
I mean, that's the one thing, we are in the golden age of classic bands touring, because bands make their money from the tours.
Yeah.
So many of these bands that 10, 15 years ago you would have never expected to be able to see again are like, hey, if we can make money, we're going to go do it. I mean, post-COVID, I can't think of many bands that haven't been out on tour. It's just
it's the way to make money.
Yeah, it's been a glut of live shows for these bands, and that's great, because there was a time when there was a backlash from the 80s or whatever, and a lot of these bands would have gone and played to nobody. But every time these guys come to town, I see it on social media. People just go nuts.
Yeah,
for
and
it.
they their initial release, the second release was a little more country influenced with a lot of Christian overtones.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
I mean, at one point, the lead singer went on to do gospel.
Really?
They had a very, I guess, religious background, and it just.
Huh. Now, maybe that's them right now. Maybe that's the tour bus driving by.
The bus is pulling up.
I never would have guessed that. Let's look at the back of this. Here they are. I mean, it is absolutely the 80s. Or
Yeah.
Is it 79?
80s.
80. Okay.
Yeah,
because
this came out in 83.
You've kind of got. Oh, that's right. Because you've got that it just looks like the time. The muted colors, more pastel type stuff.
And Slash Records, which was another trusted label.
Yeah, and part of a much bigger label.
Oh, yeah.
Slash is Warner, right?
I believe so.
Yeah. So we're going to do that record label show.
Yeah, we need to do that. It's going to take a little bit of time because we got to do more research than normal.
Yeah, we need to do more than just go to Wikipedia for that. But no, Violent Femmes, this is one that this will pop up in my vinyl groups occasionally, and I still haven't bought it, and I need to.
It's if you're going to sample the band, this is the one to get.
Yeah.
I mean, let's see how many singles they had. They had one single from this.
Yeah.
Gone Daddy Gone.
It's not even Blister in the Sun.
No, it's not even Blister in the Sun. Or my favorite, which is Kiss Off.
Yeah.
Because of I take one because you left me, two for my family, three for the heartache. I won't go through them all.
I'll have to check it out. It's been in my cart. It's been in my hand before to buy, and I just haven't done it. I think there was a new version of this that just got released.
Yeah, there was a
like an anniversary
kind of double.
Yeah, I'll have to look for that. But that's a good one to end on, because I know how much this band means to you.
Oh, I mean, I listened to these guys so much in college, and I tried to get everybody else to listen, but
you were ahead of your time.
I was ahead of my time then.
People probably just thought you were weird back then.
Yeah. And they're like, oh, we don't want to hear that.
That sounds a little too folky.
Yeah, what is this?
And then, backtrack from now, 15 years ago, Irish folk music was, has been all the rage. Thank God that went away. All those Irish folk bands. Violent Femmes, first album. Go get it.
You're up.
Well, that little band that I started to mention, this is a Stray Cats 40. This is their 40th anniversary as a band. They formed in 79. Brian Setzer, Lee Rocker, and drummer Slim Jim Phantom formed in Massapequa, New York. They had numerous hit singles in Australia, Canada, and the U.S., including Stray Cat Strut, She's Sexy in 17, Rock This Town. They they were an anomaly at the end of the 70s. Like we were talking about rockabilly before, it just caught on. I mean, you had Stray Cats, you had a group like Sha Na Na. I mean, on and on and on. And many bands that we all know, were huge rockabilly fans.
Yeah.
Mike Ness from Social D,
Oh, yeah.
huge rockabilly fan. By the way, Mike Ness's album, Cheating at Solitaire, is fantastic if you get a chance to listen to that. But I remember being very, very young and hearing these guys and just wondering what in the hell is going on, because it didn't sound
No, there was not a lot of stuff like that.
it didn't sound like anything on the radio. It didn't look like anything on MTV, and they were just in that nexus of those two things, and they just exploded from there. I remember a little later on, when I was in pep band in middle school, we played Rock This Town in pep band.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, when you are a rock or a pop band and middle school pep bands are playing your music, I think it's safe to say that you've probably made a mark.
You've made it.
Yeah. But the other crazy thing about these guys is, like, Brian Setzer, when they became famous, was like 18. They were all very young.
Yeah, they were
And
young
they were kind of
dudes.
carrying that rockabilly 50s type torch. Eddie Cochran, Ricky Nelson, all the stuff from the 50s, and introducing it into not just their generation, but maybe their parents' generation who hadn't listened to that music before. I love the artwork here. It's like the original Stray Cat animated dude. And, the Stray Cats are something that I think Brian Setzer, in his solo career, and when he did the Brian Setzer Orchestra stuff, he kind of tried to, get away from them. But all three of these guys who are still around have embraced what the band means. I don't think there's anything too special in the gatefold, but we're going to open it up. Oh, you got a live performance shot, and then some
Nice.
individual photos, and then the 40th anniversary thing. Yeah, these guys, I've seen Stray Cats twice, probably maybe in the last 15 years or so. If you get a chance, go see them. It's another one where you're just like, there's three guys making this noise on stage, and it's, it feels good. They're kind of tongue in cheek. They've got some songs that are sort of funny. They've got some ballads, and then they have some really heavy, hard rocking stuff that you're like, this guy's, this almost like rockabilly metal, almost. So they run the gamut. But Brian Setzer is without a doubt one of my favorite like living guitarists, just because he's a student of the instrument. He's such a good player, but aside from that, his voice is just so great and so distinctive.
Yes.
I love the guy. I always have. I remember when Brian Setzer Orchestra, first started, like in the early 90s, I was like a guy playing guitar in front of a 17-piece orchestra of horns. I'm on board. And I got to see them like 5 or 6 times over the years. Any chance you get to see Brian in any of and he does a lot of different groups and bands too, but I know that he had an issue recently over the last year or so where he hasn't been able to play. So he's just now getting to the point where he can play guitar again. So hopefully that
Hopefully all the skills come back.
fixes itself,
Yeah.
and he's able to be back on the road. Funny enough, he, with his wife that he's with now, he and his wife live in Minneapolis.
Oh,
Yeah. So originally from New York, now he's up in Minneapolis. He
Interesting.
must be a glutton for terrible weather.
yes.
Well, it's been a blast talking about these trios with you. Like we said, there are many out there that we've left out. We want you guys to communicate with us. Tell us what we missed. Tell us your favorite trio bands. And please also share ideas for shows with us, because we're always accepting your producer qualities to help us put this show together. When these folks go to our Fourth Wall channel, which is kind of like our home away from home on YouTube, it's
Get
kind
swag.
of, yeah, you can get swag there. You can get behind the scenes moments. We have discussions before we record that we're going to put together, and you can see those. You can get, like he said, swag that everybody can get. You can join for $1 a month and be part of the show. That's our lowest level on. You can also join for free, but our lowest level is $1 a month. You can help us just keep this show chugging, keep producing it, and moving right along. When they go to the socials, John, what would we like these folks to do?
Like, subscribe, comment.
And share. Share it with everybody.
Share away.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us. For Wheels, I'm Jay, and we'll see you all the next time around.